So today we're going to be talking about video outputs. So most people think, well, whatever monitor I get, I'll just use whatever cable it comes with, and that won't be fine. Well, that's actually not correct, because this monitor right here, it's a ViewSonic 144Hz 1080p monitor, only comes with an HDMI cable. But this is a HDMI 1.4 cable, which doesn't support 144 Hz. It only supports 120 Hz. So you wouldn't even get what the monitor can offer with what it gives you, which sucks. What you would need is a DisplayPort cable. And DisplayPort's pretty good because for someone like me who has a laptop and you want to connect your monitor to it, you can get a USB-C to DisplayPort adapter. Now this is really good because you can get full 144 Hz from your laptop to your monitor. And these the ones I just mentioned, DisplayPort, USB-C, and HDMI. They're all fairly new, right? So you only need to plug this in. Your monitor's only gonna have two cables coming from it, the power and the video output. But way back when, they didn't have these. This is a DVI cable. And you didn't just have a DVI cable, which, this is pretty cool. It had screws, so you couldn't just yank it out. Somewhat like the DisplayPort cables of today. It needed a D-sub cable, which would also send another video output with it, because it couldn't handle the bandwidth of 60 Hz 1080p. And it would need an audio output, because it didn't send audio through it. And some monitors, like if you're still using like an older monitor, it'll still have this. So if you don't really care about 144 Hz or anything, they're still fine. They'll get 60 Hz 1080p easy. Like this is an older ViewSonic monitor, and it only has 1080p 60 Hz. So it needs it. Which is fine. And you also need to check what your graphics card has. This one has a D-sub and an HDMI, which is fine. And weirdly enough, it has a PS2 port. Weird Quadro card. But on a laptop, some, like mine, only has a HDMI and a DisplayPort. And I was always like, what's that little D on it? So if you have a USB Type-C port on yours, and it has a little D on it, don't use the HDMI ports on it. Use that, because that's going to be a DisplayPort. So then instead, you would want to get the USB-C to HDMI, so you can get the full output. So first thing you do when you get a monitor, you're going to want to look at the manufacturer website, and you want to see what its max bandwidth is through each of its ports, and which ports it has. Because you may be like, oh, it's HDMI, that's fine. Well, there's different kinds of HDMI. I really like to make it complicated. So first off, there's like, this is pretty old. This is HDMI 1.4. I'm just gonna say like the newer ones that are DisplayPort and HDMI. This has a max bandwidth of 120 Hz 1080p, 30 Hz 4K, and 30 Hz 1440p. So it is not something you want to be using. That's what this monitor has. So it's just not fun. You don't want to be using that. And HDMI 2.0 is a little bit better. It's 1080p, 144 Hz, 1440p is 60 Hz, and 4K is 60 Hz. So it's a little bit better, but what if you want to have 144 hertz, 1440p, which is kind of becoming the norm now. Like a lot of people have that. Well, then you're gonna need a DisplayPort cable or an HDMI 2.1. Now 2.1 is the best output you can have right now, but it's only on like the newest graphics cards and like the newest laptops and everything. But if you can get that immediately, go on Amazon and get a HDMI 2.1 cable. It won't come up as that. You're gonna have to look up an 8K cable because it's the only cable that can support 8K. But if it supports 8K, you're fine. It doesn't usually say HDMI 2.1, it just says it can support 8K. And DisplayPort, you're gonna have DisplayPort 1.2, which is 165 hertz 1080p, 120 hertz 144 hertz, and 1440p, not 144 hertz, and 60 hertz 4K. That's a pretty good cable if you want 1440p. And the next one would be DisplayPort 1.4, which supports the same thing, except it's 4K, can output up to 120 hertz. And it's when it's on 1080p, it can support 240. And it's 1440p, it can support 165, which is really nice. That's what last gen's NVIDIA processor GPUs had. That's what they had. That's still pretty nice. You usually won't need any more than that, but there's like Samsung monitors coming out. They're 1440p, 240 hertz. You're gonna need HDMI 2.1, or if they come out with a DisplayPort 1.6, that's what you want. So that's everything for today. Last note is always remember, when you're buying a monitor, look on the manufacturing website. That'll tell you if you really need it, because it's a lot more complicated than what they just say in the title.